Hello, in this video, I'm going to talk about why onions make us cry, and I'll share some tips for how we can prevent it. So what happens is onions, as plants growing in the ground before we harvest them, they absorb and use sulfur to form certain amino acids within their cells. So when we cut into an onion, we release the sulfur contents from those cells. And when the sulfur is released, it mixes with certain enzymes that are outside of the onion cells. So they mix together and causes a series of chemical reactions that take place. And the end result is a chemical called Syn-propanethial-S-oxide. I know it's a mouthful, but it's a really unstable chemical that then vaporizes. So it goes off into the air. And when it gets to your eyes, the chemical mixes with the tears that are in the watery layer of your eye and actually forms sulfuric acid. That's why it burns. That's why it feels the way it does. So in response, your eyes will tear up. You'll produce reflex tears, which we produce in response to an external stimulus when the eye is trying to flush something out to protect it. So that's why we cry. We produce reflex tears to flush out the sulfuric acid that has formed on the surface of our eyes. So onions developed this as a strategy to keep little critters, little animals from eating them. Because imagine you're a little critter, you find an onion, you take a big bite. Not only is there the unpleasant taste of biting into a big raw onion, but they also go through this exact same issue with the sulfuric acid. So it teaches those little critters to stay away from onions. So what can we do to prevent crying from cutting onions? So first, different types of onions have different amounts of sulfur. So certain types of onions are going to produce less sulfur and cause less crying. So if you can pick and choose your onion varieties, then that could help. Also, if onions are cold when we cut them, it slows down how fast those chemical reactions take place, which reduces the amount of the chemical that is released into the air that causes you to cry. So if the onions were previously refrigerated and then you take them out and cut them right away, or if you soak the onion in a bowl of ice water right before you cut it, having them be nice and cold is going to reduce the amount of chemicals that are released into the air and cause you to cry. Also, fresher onions cause fewer tears than onions that have been stored for a long time. So it's sort of like the longer we store them, the more potent the chemicals become and the more they will tend to make you cry. Also, the root end of an onion has a higher concentration of these sulfuric compounds that cause these chemical reactions. So if you avoid cutting the root end of the onion, then you're going to avoid the greatest release of those chemicals into the air. Also, a sharper knife when you're cutting is going to cause less damage to the onion. So you're going to have less release of the sulfuric compounds that are mixing with the enzymes. So the less you damage the onion, the less of that chemical reaction is going to take place and the fewer tears you'll have. And then finally, there are some basic things you could do if you really want to avoid tears. You could wear eye protection like goggles or something, or you could use ventilation, like maybe do it under a cooking hood, like over your stove, or put a fan so that we're blowing those chemicals in the opposite direction instead of allowing them to come right up to your face. All right, that's all I have for you in this video. Thank you so much for watching.